Imagine controlling like 60% of a massive American industry. I mean, we're talking about managing 2 million hotel rooms every single day.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's just a staggering amount of real estate.
Right. It's a $40 billion empire.
Hmm.
But now imagine building that entire empire starting with just $7 in your pocket and like a borrowed mop.
It's wild. It really completely shatters the usual image we have of how corporate empires are built.
Yeah, exactly.
Because usually, you expect glass skyscrapers, Wall Street boardrooms, hedge fund managers making these aggressive hand gestures over mahogany tables.
Right, the typical corporate takeover stuff.
Exactly. But this is a story that played out right at the front desks of roadside mom-and-pop motels all across America.
Okay, well, let's unpack this, because today's deep dive is incredibly fascinating. We are looking at a really detailed source document from Wright, as that maps out the meteoric rise of the Patel community in the United States.
It's such a great source to dig into.
It really is. So for you listening, this is a group originally from Gujarat, India, and their roots were entirely in farming and land. In fact, their original surname was Patidar, which literally ties back to land ownership.
Right, a deep agricultural history.
Yeah, yet over the course of basically 50 years, they managed to rewrite their destiny so completely that they became the absolute backbone of the American hospitality industry.
And what's really fascinating here is how ordinary people, like the kind of working class families that history usually just completely overlooks, managed to gain permanent social, economic, and political recognition.
And they did it just by providing a collective service, right?
Exactly. Through generations of it. We aren't looking at some series of lucky corporate buyouts here. We are looking at a literal masterclass in community-driven economic strategy.
Right. But to understand how you conquer a national industry, you kind of have to look at how they even got their foot in the door in the first place. I mean, they certainly didn't show up with trust funds ready to deploy.
Oh, far from it. If we rewind to the historical trigger for all this, everything really hinges on the 1965 Immigration Act.
Okay, let's talk about that.
Yeah, so before that year, the number of Indians in America was incredibly small. The act opened the door, but it initially prioritized educated professionals.
Doctors and engineers, right?
Exactly. But meanwhile, back in Gujarat, you had all these farming families facing severe land divisions and just devastating crop losses.
So the agricultural lifestyle that had sustained the Patidar community for generations was just fundamentally breaking down.
It was collapsing, which, is the ultimate motivator.
Survival basically forces innovation.
100%.
And the historical data in the source shows that while the very first arrivals, post-1965, were those doctors and engineers, the ordinary farming families quickly followed.
Yeah, they came over looking for any kind of opportunity.
And they didn't, or I guess they couldn't, really go into typical corporate jobs. They pivoted straight into small businesses, which sparked what became known as the 1970s Motel Revolution.
Which is such a great term for it.
It is. And this revolution really leaned on 3 specific pillars, according to the source, starting with incredibly low investment.
Right. Think about the American highway system back in the 1970s.
Oh, yeah. Pre-interstate boom.
Exactly. You had all these independent roadside motels that had suddenly been bypassed by the new interstates. Or they were just struggling to survive anyway.
They're basically distressed assets.
Exactly. So a family could buy a commercial property for anywhere between $20,000 and $50,000.
Which, I mean, sounds ridiculously cheap to us today.
Oh, absolutely.
But for a new immigrant family arriving with almost nothing, that is still a massive mountain of debt.
Yeah.
And buying a struggling, failing business is a terrible idea unless you have a way to radically slash the overhead.
Right.
Which brings up the second pillar they leaned on, family labor.
Yeah, and this is where they essentially created a totally enclosed economic ecosystem.
Yeah.
Well, there were virtually zero wage costs. Husbands, wives, children, they handled absolutely everything themselves.
Wow.
Everything, yeah. They managed the reception desk around the clock. They cleaned the rooms, scrubbed the bathrooms, did the laundry, and handled all the bookkeeping.
So no outside hires at all?
None. Money flowed into the business from the guests, but because they weren't paying outside employees, it never flowed out.
So if you eliminate employee wages entirely, a struggling $20,000 motel suddenly becomes a cash flow positive machine.
Exactly. You're just paying the mortgage and feeding your family.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
But here's where it gets really interesting to me. It sounds like they basically invented an open source business model.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Yeah. Because the third pillar is community support and chain migration. Instead of hoarding their secrets to success, which is what you normally see in highly competitive markets, they shared the blueprint.
Yeah, they completely open sourced it.
If one person bought a motel and made it profitable, they turned around and loaned their profits to their relatives so they could do the exact same thing.
It's a brilliant hack of the traditional financial system.
Wait, but how does that actually scale? Because loaning a cousin $5,000 on a handshake is one thing, but you can't conquer a national industry on informal agreements alone.
You'd think so, right?
Yeah. How did the risk of people just defaulting not collapse the whole system?
That is the crucial question. And it scales because absolute trust lowers friction.
Okay, tell me more about that.
Think about a traditional corporate environment. Securing a commercial loan involves massive friction. You have underwriting, risk assessments, credit checks, legal fees.
Months of waiting.
Exactly. But within this community, the trust was so implicit. It was bound by these deep cultural expectations and family honor, so capital could move instantly.
Wow.
If a cheap roadside motel popped up for sale in Georgia, the money was pooled and wired the very next day.
No lawyers involved.
No lawyers involved. Because defaulting on a loan wasn't just some financial penalty. It meant total social exile from your own community.
Oh, wow. So the social pressure acted as the ultimate collateral.
Precisely. The community itself is the underwriter.
That is incredible.
And it worked so incredibly well that eventually traditional American banks caught on. Bank managers began giving out commercial loans simply based on the trustworthiness of the Patel surname.
Wait, just based on the name?
Yeah. The name itself basically became a verifiable credit score.
That is mind-blowing.
It is. And so this grassroots movement started along the highways of Mississippi, Georgia, and Florida, and then it systematically spread to Texas and California. Through sheer repetition and shared resources, they forever linked the word motel with the name Patel.
And they didn't just stop at motels either. The source shows that once you have that cash flow and that highly fluid community capital, you start empire building.
Right. You move up the food chain.
Yeah. Exactly. Between 1990 and 2010, they aggressively diversified. They took their profits and moved into gas stations, liquor stores, even major fast food franchises like Dunkin' Donuts and Subway.
Yeah, they really spread out.
But to go from a loose network of families to a legitimate national powerhouse, you need structure. And that turning point seems to be 1989.
Yes. The founding of AHOA.
The Asian American Hotel Owners Association.
Exactly. If we connect this to the bigger picture, 1989 is really the moment this community transitioned. They went from being a collection of independent small business owners to a unified institutional power block.
Right.
Today, AHOA boasts over 20,000 members who collectively control more than 11,000 hotels.
Let me just throw these current 2025 numbers out there for you listening because they are genuinely staggering.
They really are.
Today, Patels control 60% of all U.S. hotels and motels. They operate 2 million rooms a day.
2 million.
2 million. This is a $40 billion industry now. We aren't talking about those rundown roadside spots from the 70s anymore. They are the operators behind major franchises for Marriott, Hilton, and Hyatt.
It is just a phenomenal economic ascent. But, what comes with a $40 billion market share?
I'm guessing political influence.
Massive political and cultural influence. Regardless of where you sit on the political spectrum, seeing names like Nikki Haley, the former South Carolina governor and UN ambassador,
Right.
and Bobby Jindal, the former Louisiana governor, seeing them alongside literally hundreds of Patels sitting on local city councils and acting as mayors across the country. It shows the undeniable scale of this community's integration into American leadership.
And they were building physical communities at the exact same time, too. The source mentions Gujarati schools, temples, and cultural centers springing up in places like New Jersey and Illinois.
Yeah, to ensure their culture survived the economic boom.
Exactly. But as I was reading through all this, I noticed a massive disconnect in how mainstream America was actually perceiving them during this exact same time period.
Oh, you mean their pop culture footprint?
Yeah. Like, the phrase Patel Motel became a cultural fixture, and mainstream media pointed directly to characters like Apu from The Simpsons.
Right, the convenience store owner stereotype.
Yeah. Doesn't that highlight a really weird blind spot?
Yeah.
You have pop culture stereotyping them, often playing them for cheap laughs, while in reality, they were a highly sophisticated, meticulously organized community.
Quietly cornering a $40 billion market.
Right under everyone's noses.
Yeah.
It's like the general public was completely missing the actual story of what was happening in their own towns.
That is a brilliant observation, and it perfectly captures the friction between superficial media representation and the on-the-ground reality.
Yes, night and day.
While television was broadcasting this two-dimensional caricature, the reality was a deeply complex economic engine fueled by incredibly unglamorous, grueling labor.
The sweat equity.
Exactly, because the macroeconomics, the $40 billion, the 2 million rooms, all of that can obscure the deeply personal labor that actually built it.
I totally agree. The macro numbers completely hide the human cost. And that's why grounding this massive economic takeover in actual human stories is so vital for this deep dive.
It really is.
It shows us the literal price paid for that 60% market share. Let's look at the story of Lalji Patel, who represents that first generation.
This is such a powerful story.
It is. This man arrived in America in 1966 with exactly $7 to his name.
And his entry into the hospitality industry was, frankly, as far from a corporate boardroom as you can possibly get. His first job was doing motel room service for $1.20 an hour.
Just grinding it out. But he didn't stay there long. Just 1 year later, in 1967, he somehow scrapes together enough to buy a $15,000 motel in Louisiana. And he and his wife, Kanta, basically became machines. They cooked, they cleaned, they ran the reception desk 24/7. They turned this budget roadside spot into what they proudly called a showroom.
A showroom. I love that.
Right. Fast forward to today, and his company, Suncoast Hotels, owns over 200 properties across the Marriott, Hilton, and Hyatt brands. He manages 20,000 rooms and is personally worth $2 billion.
Unbelievable.
But out of all those massive numbers, there's a quote from him in the source that really anchors the whole thing. He said, "I wasn't ashamed when I cleaned the motel because I was building the American dream."
Wow. That quote is really the psychological heartbeat of this entire movement.
Yeah, it completely sums it up.
Because there was absolutely no ego involved. The work was strictly functional. Scrubbing toilets wasn't beneath them. It was simply the mechanical step required to build capital.
It was about survival.
Exactly. Lalji's story is about sheer survival. But what happens when that survival is fundamentally secured?
Right.
That's where the second generation comes in.
Which is a massive pivot for the community. And we see that perfectly in the story of Dr. Kamlesh Patel.
Yes, the doctor.
Right. His father bought an $18,000 New Jersey motel in 1970. And Kamlesh didn't exactly have what anyone would call a traditional childhood.
No, not at all.
He was literally doing his algebra homework at the reception desk while checking in guests late at night.
Because his father gave him a very specific, non-negotiable mandate. He told him, "Don't suffer my hardships, become a doctor."
The classic immigrant parent push.
Exactly. The first generation absorbed the physical toll, so the second generation could escape it.
Which he absolutely did.
Yeah.
Kamlesh earned a scholarship to Rutgers, went to medical school, and is now a top cardiac surgeon in New York, doing 3 to 4 heart surgeries every single day.
Which is just an incredible trajectory on its own.
It is. But here is the kicker. This is the detail from the source that I just cannot stop thinking about.
Oh.
He says, "I have a scalpel in my hand, but it was bought by the profit of my dad's motel."
Oh, that's beautiful.
And every single weekend, this elite New York cardiac surgeon goes back to wipe down his dad's old motel reception desk.
Oh, really? Still.
He does it so he never forgets his roots.
That image, a highly specialized surgeon performing this manual cleaning ritual at a cheap motel desk, is incredibly powerful.
It really brings it all full circle.
It does, and it illustrates the underlying formula at play here. Hard work plus family plus community equals the American dream, and the demographics today prove it out.
How so?
Well, for every 10,000 Lalji Patels today, those original founders, there are 100,000 Kamlesh Patels, educated, highly specialized professionals who are benefiting directly from that grueling foundation.
So what does this all actually mean for us today? Because, we live in an era where we absolutely love to romanticize hustle culture.
Oh, yeah. Big time.
You see it all over social media. Entrepreneurs bragging about waking up at 4 a.m, grinding out the 80-hour work week, taking ice baths.
Right. The whole tech bro routine.
Exactly. But looking at these families, you realize what a modern luxury that version of the grind actually is. This wasn't just working overtime for personal glory or an IPO.
Yeah.
This was total family consumption. They sacrificed sleep, comfort, and traditional childhoods. Kids were literally doing inventory at midnight on a Tuesday. It completely reframes what true generational sacrifice actually looks like.
It really does. The hustle wasn't individualistic at all. It was deeply collective. And because of that, the Patel surname itself has essentially become a premium brand of resilience in America.
That's a great way to put it.
It represents this group of landless immigrant farmers who took their highly specific cultural values, saving, mutual trust, relentless labor, and engineered them into a defining chapter of modern American history.
It is a literal masterclass in rewriting your own destiny. And that brings us to where this whole story is heading next. We've traced the arc from farmers to motel owners, and then from motel owners to doctors and engineers.
Right.
But what about the generation coming up right now?
Well, this raises a critical question about the future. Because the third generation is coming of age, and they are largely moving away from the hospitality industry altogether.
Really? Where are they going?
They are stepping into Silicon Valley startups, high finance, media, and tech, which, proves the ongoing upward evolution of their American dream.
Sure.
But it also presents a really fascinating challenge regarding how cultural values transfer or don't transfer across generations.
And that is exactly what I want to leave you thinking about today as we wrap up this deep dive.
Yeah.
Because the secret ingredient to this entire $40 billion empire wasn't just a clever business model or finding cheap real estate.
No, it was much deeper than that.
It was an absolute, unwavering reliance on extended family and community trust. It was the ability to borrow a life savings from a cousin on a handshake or secure a commercial bank loan simply because you shared a last name. Now imagine this new third generation. They're stepping out from behind the family motel front desks and entering the hyper-individualistic, often deeply cutthroat culture of modern American startups and finance.
It's a completely different world.
It is. So will that incredible superpower of community first survive that transition? Or will it slowly fade away, leaving this massive $40 billion motel empire as just another closed chapter of history?